Hi, in this session, I want to talk about the role of a spiritual parent. And in Malachi chapter 2, verse 15, God says that he is looking for godly offspring. And if that is what God wants of natural parents, how much more he desires it for spiritual parents. And what a tremendous privilege to be able to cooperate with God and experience our friends, relatives, and circle of influence being born again. And in the real sense, they're spiritual babies, and just as with natural babies, they will need care and nurture. And God has given you a vital role as parents to care for and bring up new spiritual babies. In the natural world, when a baby is born, it's not left exposed to the elements. It would be unthinkable that parents would just leave their newborn child outside to fend for itself. No, they will do everything to see that their baby is protected and cared for, even at the cost of their own life, if necessary. The parent's whole orientation is to give up putting their own needs first for the sake of meeting the baby's needs. Have you ever noticed that babies demand lots of care and nurturing? Well, hello. Time, effort, and lots of sleep deprivation go into bringing up a child from infancy. The role of a spiritual parent is no different. Spiritual children need care and nurture, just as a baby needs priority time and much effort. So do spiritual children. And God will give you the awesome privilege of bringing them to birth and also seeing them grow up. That means that you have a God-given responsibility to put the time and effort into seeing spiritual babies cared for and grow. Paul recognized his role as a spiritual parent when he wrote to the new disciples of Jesus in Galatia. And this is what he said in Galatians chapter 4, verse 19. But oh, my dear children, I feel as though I'm going through labor pains for you again, and they will continue until Christ is fully developed in your lives. What commitment. Paul wanted to see eternal change in their lives, not just an outward cleanup. He wanted to see the power of godly character evident in their lives so that others could see these new disciples becoming more and more like Jesus. Just as you learn how to grow as a disciple of Jesus through growing deep and strong, and that's for those that have gone through the course so far. Some of you that are listening to this may not have gone through the basic course yet. So you can duplicate the same process with your friends, relatives, and circle of influence who have been born again. Don't be put off by the responsibility. God has given you an awesome privilege. And remember, natural parents never feel completely prepared and equipped for parenthood. Ain't that the truth? And remember, natural parents never feel completely prepared and equipped for parenthood, but they learn on the job, and the same can happen for you. Your role as spiritual parents is to bring about the change Paul speaks of here in the lives of spiritual children. One thing that we are confident of is that God is right behind you and you can trust him to work in their lives. He is committed to keep his covenant with those who love him. And God says in Exodus chapter 20, verse 6, but I lavish my love on those who love me and obey my commands, even for 1,000 generations. What God is saying here is that he is a covenant-making and covenant-keeping God, and he will not let you down, nor will he let your spiritual children down. He wants to pass on the blessings you've received to the next generation and to many more generations to come. Trust him. His promise is sure. Paul learned a lot about being a spiritual parent in his lifetime. We've just seen his care for the disciples in Galatia. Now, here's another example from his life. He saw himself as a spiritual parent to Timothy. He recognized that much of what Timothy learned came from hearing him and observing what he did. And that is how it happens in the natural world. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2 says this: "You've heard me teach many things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Teach these great truths to trustworthy people who are able to pass them on to others." Notice that Paul mentions 4 generations in this verse. Firstly, himself. Secondly, Timothy. Thirdly, faithful men. And fourthly, others also. That indicates that Paul had a long-term vision. He was not only concerned for just his generation or the next, but also for the generations that follow as well. And it's the same for you as spiritual parents. You need to develop a long-term vision so that you look beyond your own spiritual generation to the ones to come, even beyond the next one to future spiritual generations. God wants to give you the joy of being spiritual parents and also the joy of becoming grandparents too. And what an exciting process. You're involved in multiplying the children of God and the citizens of the kingdom of light. And you can rejoice as you see them grow and become strong as spiritual adults. Remember, you're not on your own as new parents. God is with you, and he is ready and willing to give you all the help you need to become a capable and confident parent. When you need wisdom, ask him. He has promised to give it to you abundantly. And James chapter 1, verse 5 promises that if we lack wisdom, we can ask God for it, and he will give it to us in bucket loads. Let's look at the practical application of what we've been considering from the Bible as you take up the privilege and challenge of walking spiritual babies through the first module of Growing Deep and Strong. Firstly, prepare each session in module 1, laying the foundation a week in advance. You don't want to feed your children stale bread. Get a fresh perspective from God on the session so that you can communicate not just information, but enthusiasm and passion. We recommend that you look through the personal discovery section and then read through the script in the presentation section, thinking about how you can communicate it effectively. And I suggest that you read it out aloud beforehand. And this is what I do, and you may not see it in here. We've created all of Growing Deep and Strong that it can be duplicated, including this on how to disciple others. But let me show you my page if you can see it. But if you look close enough there, you can see there's all little pencil marks and comments beforehand. So I've read this beforehand and put little pencil marks in. So I put one little pencil mark in to have it where I need to pause it. I put 2 pencil marks in where I need to make sure it's a full stop and I need to make sure there's a gap. And then I'll put 3 pencil marks and write in pencil pause to make sure that I stop before I go on to the next topic. And what that does is it helps you to stay on track and present it with clarity and precision. And I trust and hope that what I'm doing here is achieving that with what I'm, by what I'm saying is I'm demonstrating on just how easy this is to do. And so, yep, it's worth reading out aloud and reading it out beforehand and pace yourself. And that's how you pace yourself with the little pencil marks and what have you. And it really works. And I've started teaching others that, and it's working very well for them as well. Secondly, when you come to present the session's topic, stick to the script in the coach's manual. We've written it to be as short and sharp as possible. And we want you to receive we want your disciples to receive the topic accurately. And that will help you to model what a coach does so that when it comes to their turn, your disciples will be confident in taking up the challenge to become coaches themselves. Don't be distracted by other issues or too many other illustrations. Remember, we want you to keep to the topic. Also, we want to keep the time you meet together as short as practical so that your disciples do not become weary or being out too long or receive information overload. And so it's important to understand with the way we've written Growing Deep and Strong, it is an intentional discipleship path where you're giving it. For those that have read Module 1, you'll see it where we say, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time. So this typically in Module 1 or in Module 1, the basic course, is a 20-week journey. So you don't try and give them all the information on one night. And sometimes you'll be getting revelations in your own mind as you're presenting it, but it's so important to stick to the script and keep it the way it is. We've seen it with leaders of major networking companies where they are hugely successful, but when they do their presentation, they do it in such a simple manner that it makes anyone sitting in their audience or their listeners go, oh, look at these guys. If they can do that and make all this money, well, I can too. But there was a secret in that. And the secret was to make it sound so simple that almost anyone could do it. So if you've ever heard me read out the topics, and like what I'm doing now, I keep to the script in those, especially when this is a bit different when I'm trying to coach you on how to learn them. But when I'm actually doing the verbal presentations in the other topics, I'm reading out deliberately and stick to the script that we have. My head's going 100 miles an hour, and I think I could add all these other things, but the caution is don't. Just stick to the script of what it is. And especially with this verbal presentation, remember, it's a one-way dialogue. If you've heard in earlier ones, we talk about how we present the same topic 3 different ways. The first one, for those understand that haven't read the other little sessions, teaching sessions or coaching sessions, we do a verbal presentation so they can just listen to it. That's a one-way dialogue. Then they go home and they study what you've just taught them in their own time, basically 10 to 15 minutes a day. Then they come back and discuss that topic. So they get to see the topic. So in the verbal presentation, this is a one-way dialogue, and stick to the script. Now let's look at preparing for session 1, a new life. This first session is somewhat different than the rest of the presentations in Module 1. This will require you to think about how you will present it to your new disciples, because we want firstly to celebrate their new birth, their new spiritual birth, and also help them to understand how to use the Spirit-filled Life Bible that they've just obtained. And you will need to demonstrate the features of the Bible mentioned in this session as you work through this presentation. You will notice that these features are fully outlined in the disciples' manual for their reference in future as they familiarize themselves with the Bible. Don't just have them read the disciples' manual. Get the new disciples to find these new features together in their Bible and read from there the various features presented in this session. And there's nothing like hands-on expression for them. So just one second, I'll grab this Bible that we use. We've mentioned this in other sessions, but just in case you've just come in on this one, we just use one Bible. This is the Bible we use, the course, and even what I'm coaching you, if you choose to buy the manuals and go through that and do the in-depth study, you'll need to make sure that you own this Bible. So this Bible has many, many features in it, which is in another session. But this is an astounding Bible. So in that first one, we want to teach them how to navigate their way around their Bible. So this very first session is very interactive right from the start. There's a verbal presentation, but it's also interactive to make sure they understand how to read this Bible, and how to use all the study notes, because all the study guides and all the different features, we use them all the way through the Growing Deep and Strong training, coaching. So where are we? So now let's consider the theme of session 1. Firstly, there's a brief introduction and overview of module 1. So we do an overview of it. Then there's a brief introduction to the format of module 1. In other words, how the group time and the individual time will be structured for module 1. And make sure your disciples are clear about what is expected of them as to their time commitments. There are 2 main purposes for this session. Firstly is teach the new disciples how to find their way around the Spirit-filled Life Bible using the features outlined on the topic, as I've already said. This will reinforce for them what it means to be born again. And the second purpose is to get the new disciples to understand that their allegiance has changed from being slaves to the devil to being slaves to God, which actually set them free to be all that God has planned for them. We need to mention a few things about the personal discovery section in session 1. Get the new disciples to turn to their personal discovery section, page 24, in the disciples manual, and outline what they need to do before the next session. And encourage them to set aside 10 to 15 minutes per day to do their personal discovery, and not trying to do it all at the last minute before the next session. This is really important to do it. The whole purpose of this is we want to create it as a lifestyle. We don't want to have it where they've got a mindset like this is like school exams where I cram it all in the last minute. You don't want that. You want them to do it right from day one, to learn how to pick up the Bible and spend 10 to 15 minutes a day in that, so that it becomes a lifelong habit for them. So that's really important for that to understand. And then also, as I said, in the personal discovery, just go through the section, do a first page of their own page so they understand how to do it. So if I recap, your verbal presentations, is, apart from the first one, is a one-way dialogue. Then they go home and study it. Then they come back and discuss the topic. And apart from that, on this first one, those that have already gone through Growing Deep and Strong will understand what I'm talking about with this module 1. Those that haven't, you'll understand it when you see the disciples' manual, how it's constructed on that first one. And we want to teach them how to use the Bible. And the great part about this, and we've seen this happen, is when they learn how to navigate their way around this Bible and all the study notes and commentaries and footnotes and cross-reference and all the other things that's got, they literally will spend hours. I remember in the first one that we first did, when we were trialing this, one young man, he came back one night, for us to come back and re-meet and discuss the next topic, etc., or the topic that he just learned. He was glowing, and he'd spent he made the comment, wow, because he wasn't working at the time. And he said, wow, I've just spent 5 hours today in this Bible, and this is fantastic. So we're equipping them and giving them Bible verses relevant to the particular topics we're presenting to them, but we're also showing them that it's bigger than that, and how to navigate their way around the Bible to expand on their learning. And so this becomes very powerful on that. So it's really important that you teach them how to navigate their way around the Bible. Now, just a caution with you, I've seen this with grown adults that have, never opened the Bible in their life, basically get so overwhelmed, and I've seen people burst into tears, right, with it, because they just feel so overwhelmed. So it's important that you take care and travel through that, and just take the time with each individual person to just make sure that they really understand what it is and they feel comfortable. Because if you've ever learned to ride a bike, you'll know that you just didn't jump on the bike and just ride it down the road. You fell off a few times, etc., etc. But once you learned, it was basically any time in your life you could get on the bike and, within a few pedals down the road, you're back to it again because it became normal. So this first session is really important because of that. So the other thing is we're to draw their attention to the fact that they're now enjoying a new relationship and they're living in the new kingdom, the kingdom of God. And the most important thing to end this presentation is to communicate the joy in heaven over their new spiritual birth and to impart enthusiasm about the great journey they're beginning with as God, their ruler. Okay? So next session, you will discover more about baby talk, learning to communicate with your spiritual babies. Now, in your book, if you bought the book, and I'll just pick one up here, in your Disciples Only, and this is the advanced course, it'll become known as the Leaders course, but at the moment it's called the advanced course. This is out of Discipling Others, which I've just read. Here's your note-taking section that you've got from what I said, but then also you've got a very short study section here, which goes for about 12 minutes. So what I've just taught you on this, you've actually got, information to fill out. So if you haven't bought the course or bought the manual, I'm sorry, there's just only what I basically said. But if you bought the course, you can go to our website and the shopping cart, you just look for Disciples Advanced Course, or later on it's going to become, the Leaders course, but the Disciples Advanced Course, and you can pick this up. It's less than $100 to do that. I think it's about $90 or $89 plus freight or something. And you can buy this and follow me through on the notes. All right, so trust that you've enjoyed that. So see you next time.